All right. So thanks for clicking on the video. Let's talk about the word resilience. So words matter. I say this all the time. Words matter. Our understanding of words matters even more. Okay? Because what we're taught isn't necessarily the deepest meaning or weight of that word. Okay? So the word resilience, a lot of the times in American culture, we say bounce back. Now, think about a ball, around a bouncy ball. Okay? When you throw it against the wall, it comes back. It is the exact same ball and it responds to the amount of inertia or the amount of force that you throw that ball with, right? And it comes back to you exactly the same. Now, if we're talking about resilience, which is bouncing back, we're talking about the exact same person returning to exactly where they were. Now, this makes you vulnerable to the exact same misfortune or injury that you had before. Okay? Let's think about it from the physical body. When we have an injury, we go to physical therapy in order to keep that injury from happening again by strengthening either the muscle, the whatever it is around that particular injury that needs to be strengthened so that if you, I don't know, lift something again, you're not going to re-injure yourself. You are not bouncing back. You are making yourself better through physical therapy, right? Same thing with your emotional well-being. Same thing with your spiritual well-being. You can have the greatest hope, and then something happens and you lose hope. This is spiritual bouncing back. You regain that hope, but hope is wavering. Hope falters. It's the difference between hope and faith. Faith is regardless of what is going on in your life, you know that the path you are on is the path you are meant to walk. That is faith. It is unwavering. It never changes. It is always the same. Emotional well-being. If you end up having depression and then you come out of that depression and you don't work on yourself, you are vulnerable to dealing with that same depression. So, sorry. So instead of bouncing back, look at your life and whatever is happening, this misfortune, this injury, look at it as a cleansing fire. Okay? Your entire life could be up in flames. Mine was just not that long ago. And I chose to, instead of rebuild like I have so many times in the past, I decided to rise. I decided to look at the cycles of my life, to look at exactly everything objectively and understand why, how, and what comes next, right? How do I make myself better? Am I better today than I was 5 years ago? How am I better tomorrow than I was yesterday? This is how we rise as the phoenix. We look at the flame as cleansing, and then we look at the ashes as sacred and rebuild as the phoenix and rise, no longer vulnerable to that flame because we are the fire. And we do that through self-love. Now, I already explained the 5 facets of self-love. So let's dive deeper into each one of them. Self-care. Self-care is a buzzword, and a lot of people see it as hygiene or, taking a bath, getting your nails done, getting your hair done. All of these are wonderful forms of self-care. But are you taking care of yourself in the details? I tell my children all the time that the details matter, because in the details is where the grime grows, right? If you don't cleanse along the edge of your wall, the dust builds up. And if that dust builds up, problems happen, right? You don't see like the possibility of mold. If you aren't paying attention to those crevices, you aren't paying attention to the places where the nasty things stagnate, the nasty things grow. So taking care of yourself isn't just about hygiene. It's also about literally caring for oneself. Caring for oneself in a way that makes you feel good. Weird. Anyway, in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. Okay? So if you are the type of person who likes to have pretty nails, it makes you feel good about yourself. Do it. If you like long bubble baths with your favorite music in the background and candles everywhere, that feeds your soul. Do it. Take care of yourself. Yes, I know. It feels selfish. It feels lazy to rest. But it's important because in the rest, in those downtimes, in self-care, that's where we heal. And that's the other thing. Caring for oneself is healing oneself, mind, body, and soul. Okay? Number 2, self-love. Okay, so self-love is exactly the 5 facets, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. What I wanted to talk about specifically is the feeling of love. I write in my journal, okay? And almost 5 years ago, I wrote myself my very first love letter. I tell people to do this all the time. To sit down and truly write yourself a love letter as if you were writing a letter to your lover, okay? Get detailed, okay? Yeah, I mean, legit. Like, what is it, if you were to look at yourself as a potential romantic partner, what is it about you that would attract you to yourself? Okay. And I looked, I actually did this last night. I read the 2 love letters. I wrote one 5 years ago and then I wrote one back in June. And I showed them to my children. I read them aloud and I said, this is the difference between what I understood about self-love 5 years ago and what I understand about self-love now. And the first letter, there wasn't a lot of love. There was encouragement. There wasn't a lot of love. Because I didn't understand it at that point in time in my life. I didn't understand that strength, grit, going, giving, never stopping was not necessarily love. It is part of it, but it's not necessarily love. Particularly, one of the lines within that very first letter was, you always put him first. Now, isn't that the exact opposite of self-love? When we sit there and we give and give and give and give and never focus on giving ourselves love, we are not filling our cup. We are filling someone else's and taking away the energy that we could have given to ourselves. Don't get me wrong. It is very important to give, but from the overflow, and I say that often. So when we pour love into ourselves, into our heart, it feels like it pours over. And when that love starts to pour over, that's when we have the capacity to continuously give, because we are loving ourselves, filling that cup and allowing it to overflow. So I did a video about this the other day, and I talk about this all the time. Affirmations. 3. One you know to believe, one that others tell you, and one you wish to believe. Okay? And so giving yourself these affirmations, and not just affirmations, but attaboys. Praise yourself. Praise yourself so you don't require someone else to praise you. Okay? Number 3, self-worth. I'm not talking about the achievements you received at work. Those are amazing, and if it makes you feel good to tell yourself about them every day. I want you to praise yourself and show yourself your self-worth for the things that no one sees. The time that you did the dishes when you were so exhausted that all you wanted to do was sleep. Or the time you gave love to one of your children, even though you yourself were dying inside. That is your self-worth. That is where the grit comes in, the strength, the courage, the qualities that you may not show to everybody else, but you yourself know you have them. I spent many years wearing a smile and feeling dead inside. Many years, because I never wanted anyone to see what I was struggling with. That is where my self-worth comes from. I told my children last night that I did not understand love, self-love especially, until Mother's Day this year. And it wasn't for something that somebody else did. As a matter of fact, it was actually quite upsetting because Mother's Day was not that great from the outside perspective. But when I sat down under a tree to lament, to feel sorry for myself, I realized something. My number one self-worth quality, my heart never hardened. Regardless of the terrible things that I went through, regardless of the terrible things I heard from other people, regardless of how many times I have seen shady things, I am still genuinely loving. I still genuinely care about other people. I never allowed my heart to harden. I still always gave love, regardless of how many times my heart had been broken. That was where I found my self-worth. And I pride myself on that. I pride myself on the fact that I love to love. So I turned that giving love into a receiving love and gave that love to myself. That was when I finally understood self-worth and self-love. So then number 4 is authenticity. Oh man, being authentic is hard. Being authentic is scary. It makes you vulnerable. It opens you up to criticism. It opens you up to a lot of things. But if you are brave enough to not sit there and follow the fads and the trends and wear the next best thing that everybody's wearing, and you are brave enough to walk out of your house and have people laugh at you or stare at you or whatever for what it is that you consider to be a part of you, you are brave to take that mask off, to show the world exactly who you are, which leads us into 5, knowing oneself. When the noise of the outside world, the influences that are constantly bouncing off and a lot of times landing on us, when we shut those out and we center and we become the eye of the storm, it leads us home. And home is here. No one else and nowhere else is home. This is home. And when you go inward and you truly learn to understand your soul, that is when you truly learn who you are. And when you learn who you are, you connect. There is no more need for the middleman, for the outside individual, for the praise of others. Because you have that here. And this is the most important thing. Having your own knowing of self. Not letting anyone else tell you who you are, who you should be. You're to this, you're to that. You're not enough this, you're not enough that. Those no longer matter. They now bounce off of you in this chaotic storm around you. They swirl in the hurricane. But you are centered here. That's your greatest gift. That is your greatest weapon. That is your greatest shield. Centering on your own personal peace. When you have this self-love, that past version of you, that past life is no longer attractive. You no longer chase those storms thinking they are home, because you understand that home is here. And that is resilience. You do not just rebuild, you expand, you grow, you learn. You're stronger, you're wiser, you're braver, and you love yourself. This is true resilience. Have a great day.